Good morning. My name is Gene Chan, Hearing Officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is the clerk of this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterwards through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet, so if you'd like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice, urbanforestry@sfdpw.org. This public hearing is being held to consider the following items. Order number 211939. This order supersedes Order 211828 and is to consider the removal of one significant tree on private property with replacement at 183 Edgewood. Order 211951. This order supersedes Order 211927 and is to consider the removal of 3 street trees by Public Works adjacent to 82, 84, and 97 Whitney Young Circle. Order 211952. This order supersedes Order 211928 and is to consider the removal of 7 street trees with replacement of 4 street trees on site and 3 replanted nearby adjacent to corner property at 2772 Scott Street. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimony, and help our Director of Public Works make a determination. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the director. The director will make the final determinations. When the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them if you have provided contact information. The hearing will proceed as follows. First, I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. There is no time limit for this presentation. Next, I will allow the property owner or representative to speak. Finally, any member of the public who wants to speak. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. If you're a party to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. If you're a member of the public who wants to speak, please wait for me to call for public comments, then use Zoom's raise your hand feature. If you're on a computer, to put yourself in the queue. If you're dialing in on your phone, dial *9 to indicate you're raising your hand. When it is your turn to speak, I will recognize you. If on your phone and you're muted, press *6 to unmute yourself. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing at urbanforestry@sfdpw.org. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We'll now begin the hearing. First, we will open up the hearing to general public comments on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Are there any general public comments? Mr. Clip?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are
Yeah.
you able to turn your volume up a little bit, Mr. Clip?
Is that better?
Sounds very faint to me. Is it faint to you also, Mr. Chan?
Yes.
Let me see if there's something I can do with my audio here. Audio settings. Oh, here we go. Is that a little bit better?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm glad that worked. I've never had to do that before. All right. Yeah, so I've made public comment on countless hearings like this. So just reiterating that San Francisco has one of the smallest tree canopies of any major city in the United States. Also, that we are failing our 2014 urban forest plan, that we are failing our 2021 climate action plan, and that we are failing to put into practice the preservation and replacement policies that were called for in both of these plans, and that we've not net gained a single street tree in this city since 2017, and that we're continuing to degrade our city's climate resilience and community health and ecosystem services by essentially just acting like it's business as usual. But I just want to point out that now, as a country, we are wildly backsliding. We're defunding clean energy. We're ramping up coal and oil production. We're cutting funding for resilience efforts such as tree planting. And it's not the time anymore to continue this business as usual. Right now is the time to do everything we can to preserve our climate, to preserve our planet, to preserve trees, to plant them, and to work together in partnership with city departments and the community and the public to ensure that we conduct the necessary work of our city while we continue to fight for a future for our city. Because from where a lot of us are sitting day to day, everything is looking increasingly hopeless and out of reach. And we've got to change what we're doing to meet what feels like a horrible moment in this country's history. And maybe at a hearing like this, we can't impact what happens in Washington, but we can impact what happens on our city streets. So while it may seem like a small thing that we're doing today, it is a small thing that matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other general public comments? Okay, seeing none, I will close this item and move on to the agenda items. Order number 211939. May I have Public Works make its presentation?
Can you tell me if you just see the full Public Works screen? All right. Good morning. My name is Susan Nawberry. I'm with the Bureau of Urban Forestry, and I'm the staff representative for this hearing today. So we have various goals that we have to achieve with management of the street trees. Our goal number one is to ensure safe, clean, and green infrastructure and a public right-of-way. So our mission is to preserve and grow the urban forest while balancing the safety and needs of a growing and evolving city. So we have to live with trees. They don't like living in cities surrounded by concrete and heat radiation from buildings, but they provide an immense number of benefits for the public. Because if you just had cities full of concrete, no permeable space, no shade, you would have like dramatically different cities and parts of cities with major health issues, which we do see a lot in the eastern parts of the city. So most of these cases aren't exactly related to our street tree SF cycle, and we actually are farther along than this now. We actually only have about 16,000 trees left to prune, and they're all assigned to be pruned. So actually, we're about to start over a next cycle. However, there are people who have been waiting a really long time, and we are shifting toward a pruning only model. And so you will see tree removal applications where applicants have decided to take on removals on their own. And this is to speed up the removal when they aren't getting the city services within that 8-year cycle. And we have a tree ordinance that establishes the authorization and standards for addressing a wide range of issues regarding trees. It's codified under Article 16 of the Public Works Code. And that means we can protect trees, we can approve the removal. Every single tree is assessed individually. We don't rubber stamp these approvals or denials. We carefully assess the conditions of the tree and the requirements and proposals for removal. There are updates to our code, and we're going to keep bringing this up because a lot of people, are used to our old code. So if the department is removing a tree, a replacement is required within 120 days. It's supposed to be added to the delayed replacement tree report. If it can't be replaced in place, it must be replanted at a nearby location. So if the property owner applicant is granted a removal permit, the department shall require a replacement street tree of equivalent value to the one imposed or to the one removed or impose an in lieu fee. So that means if somebody is removing a large stature tree that appraises for thousands of dollars, we may subtract the cost of the 24-inch box tree, which is our current in lieu fee, and we may still assess the appraisal value to approximate the equivalent value of that tree. So this is like loosely our tree removal criteria. However, again, as I said, we don't rubber stamp removals. We assess every single tree. We assess every single condition. And like our number one tree removal criteria is if it's dead and dying or not thriving. If it's a poor species for the location, like a 6-foot sidewalk with a Metro Sideros Excelsa that requires at least a 15-foot sidewalk. If there's damage to private property that cannot be repaired without necessitating the removal of roots that would destabilize a tree, and like if the tree is hazardous and we assess hazard in accordance to the best management practices of the International Society of Arboriculture, we don't use the term hazardous loosely. There are actual standards that we apply to that terminology. So if a tree is small and it's in construction-related removal, we may approve it and have it be replaced in kind. And because you can actually source 4-inch trees at a nursery. If the tree will be destabilized by construction, there is absolutely no workaround to the way the building is designed that impacts the right of way and the street trees. There's absolutely no feasible workaround. For example, PG&E absolutely will not permit the relocation of their lines to demo or build a building. So oftentimes they must access the building where there are street trees. Applicants must provide sufficient supporting documents. So we don't just make the assumption because they say that they can't do this. We need to see evidence that they've tried everything they can to preserve the tree. If the tree is in fair or good condition, an applicant must pay the appraised value for the loss of the tree if it must be removed based on those criteria. So our first case is order 211927, and it's 828497 Whitney Young Circle, and this is a joint removal with the curb ramp program and the Public Works Bureau of Urban Forestry, and it's the removal of 3 street trees by Public Works. Due to the installation of the accessible curb ramps and the replacement trees must be relocated due to site conflicts, and the staff approved the removal and the public has protested. And so in this case,
Sorry, I thought we were
Yes.
on 211939.
211939. Oh, you know what? This is 211939. I just did not update the presentation to reflect the new orders because we had, so Edgewood?
Yes, Edgewood.
Okay, we can go with that first.
Okay, sorry, just going through the agenda order.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I realized that was first in the agenda. Okay, so Order 211939 at 183 Edgewood, and this is the removal of one significant tree on private property with replacement at 183 Edgewood, and staff denied the removal and the applicant appealed. Sorry, it's not a London plane tree. It's a deodar cedar. It's approximately 45 feet in height. It was 31 inches in diameter as measured at 3 meters above grade on the uphill side of the tree. And there was a deficiency where it was topped previously by the owner, but it doesn't significantly impact the tree currently. We appraised it at 13,700. The consulting arborist appraised the tree at 5,900. We looked at the two appraisals and we found that, you know, there's a way to diminish the value. So the original value of the tree is like $33,000 based on the size. Then you go through and diminish the tree's value based on how close it is to the property, any health conditions, any structural issues. And we determined that the form was deducted twice with the external limitation. So with our functional replacement was deducted down to 30%, but they deducted form and structure. And you can only double count like topping. You can only count like one defect once. So you don't count like the form and structure twice. So you have to leave form as 100%. So that's why our appraisal value is higher. And, you know, we're open to discussion about that. But we think we did our appraisal correctly. And so this is the planting plan that they proposed, and the stair has moved. And I'll let the applicant show like the difference between like the existing tree. But you know, in real life, the existing tree is a little like lower below this proposed plan. And to us, like that's like a 4-foot estimated planting area. And then they are proposing a magnolia, and like this tree is significantly more beneficial than a magnolia in a 4-foot planter. First off, that's a really small planter for a southern magnolia. Second, if they're proposing a little gem magnolia, that's a significant loss to a tree this size. So we can't like whatever tree is planted in this small container, it's never going to reach like the value and the size of this tree here. Even if it's a large stature tree, just being constrained in this small soil volume, pressed up against a building, boxed up around these stairs. And I would actually like to see a view facing the property too of these, because that's not entirely clear to me also. But that, you know, nothing in terms of that is final. So we did find some documentation. So there was like a complaint too that the tree, you know, there was some potential foundation issues. First off, this is like a giant remodel. So, you know, if they're going to remove this tree, like you're immediately going to produce slope stabilization issues. The roots are going to start decaying, and you're going to create pockets of air in the soil where the roots decay from removing that tree. So you're going to have to basically re-pour that foundation anyway. If you're going to have to re-pour that foundation, we recommend installing piers. So it's across the South Bay and the Bay Area, other municipalities have required pier foundations to preserve large stature trees. Seldom is a tree solely at fault. In a place like California, we have constant tectonic activities. Seldom is the tree at fault solely for any foundation issues. I was looking at the photos of that foundation, and I don't have any trees at my house, and my foundation looks much worse than the photos provided for this site. So I was actually really impressed that they had this large stature tree, and their foundation frankly looked like better than mine. And I don't have a large stature tree next to my house. So I don't think that this tree is solely at fault for the foundation issues. And with such a massive remodel where they're putting a garage and moving the stairs, there's going to be some major construction, and really think that like other cities across the state and the Bay Area, like, they will install piers, they'll do suspended walkways to preserve large stature trees like this. And so I just think it's a matter of planning and design, and not like, well, we're gonna move the stairs and add a garage, so like we just want to get rid of the tree and it's too close to the house. Because like across the Bay Area, we see cases like this. So I think like that walkway could be suspended. And like, here's an example, Menlo Park, where they required that the demolition of the slab foundation, installation of pier foundations occurred. And this is for a large redwood tree at their property, which I didn't take a photo of. But this report is easily, you can find it online. It's just this address. So we have a colleague on our staff that wrote numerous reports for the city of Menlo Park, and it's really, really common. And so they wanted to remove like a large stature redwood that was 3 feet from the house, and the city recommended pier installation, and the project was still able to proceed. And I just recommend upholding the denial, because I think the preservation of these trees is feasible if it's properly planned for. But we just have to rethink the way we're pursuing like remodels and new and rebuilds as it plays into large stature trees, because we're just never going to have a large stature tree at this site like this ever again. And it's just death by 1,000 paper cuts for our urban forest. And so that's why I'm urging you very strongly to deny the removal of this significant tree. And that concludes my presentation for 183 Edgewood. And so, yeah, like I said, we denied the tree removal to be consistent with how we handle similar cases.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant or the property owner or his representative here to speak? Stephen Sutro?
Oh, I just unmuted Christine Hunt. I think she was going to.
Hi,
Christine, would you?
this is Stephen Sutro. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like, it sounds like you'd like to hear from Christine as well, or something like that first?
Whoever
I'd
was
just like
going
to hear
make
from
the.
one of you
It's up.
right
Yeah.
now.
And we can, if both of them need to
Yeah.
take their time, yeah,
Mhm.
it's up to you guys.
No,
It's up to you guys.
I plan on doing the presentation if that's all right. And I'd like to share my screen
Okay.
if that's okay, because I do have a front view and some other exhibits.
Okay, just a moment. Let me promote you to a panelist. Just a moment.
Thank you.
Okay, you're now being shown as a panelist, and you will need to unmute yourself once again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, and we can see your presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Sorry, I'm going to split my screen with what I'm going to say, if that's okay. So we'll just take up a little bit of space there. 1 second. Sorry, I'm managing my screen. Okay. Thank you, Susan, for that presentation. Here's the existing street view of the property and of the tree. The tree is very close to the foundation of the house and has uplifted the foundation very significantly. Of course, it's impossible to say if the tree is the sole cause of damage, but the damage is significant. And it's the conclusion of our arborist, Roy, who is here today, if any questions need to be asked of him, that the foundation cannot be repaired. We're very familiar, Susan, with grade beam and pier construction, where we're trying to save redwood species and other species that are significant close to construction. it is our opinion that it's not practical in this case for two reasons. One, it would change the design significantly, not just the path of the stairs, but there's a basement plan. There's significant foundation related to the garage and to make the house seismically capable, which is our requirement when you tip over a certain amount of work inside the house or do enough of a renovation. We have to bring it to full seismic standards. And the size of the grade beams, sure, the piers could be located where they don't hit the roots, but the size of the grade beams alone would sever the roots and would make the tree not structurally viable, is the conclusion of our arborist when he confers with the structural engineering possibilities. I want to say that the disparity in the value is fine, meaning we're happy to use an in lieu fee of $13,700. That's not a problem. Another thing that we could accommodate is a replacement tree in a larger soil volume. We're happy to design the front, and I'll show you. Here it is. Well, first I'll walk you through quickly the foundation. So this is a map of the approximate location of the roots. We don't know once they go subterranean for root number 1 and 2, kind of how far down or what direction they take. But root number 3 is the one that is coming up through the foundation, is uplifting the foundation. And so we've exposed, or it has exposed itself through cracking the concrete in this is the basement level here. Here are the cracks that root is causing in the slab and then in the very thick perimeter foundation wall here. Here's the rendering of the front that Susan you were asking about.
30 seconds.
We've taken out the street trees at the front so you can see, but this is the approximate position of the suggested street tree replacement. And it's identified as a magnolia, but we're happy to look at any other species, a different box size, as large of a mature specimen as the city would like to see there. We're happy to place there, and happy to make more soil around it so that it can thrive. So I have a bunch of other pictures and exhibits. If Jean or Susan, you have any questions about anything here, and the replacement area identified is this, but we could conjoin several of these planters into a larger soil volume, and we could make more soil available here, I believe, than the soil that's currently available pinched in the existing location. The existing location being here. That's it, I guess, for my time. So if you have any other questions, I'm here to answer them, as is Roy, the arborist. Thank you.
Thank you. May I, any public comments at this time on this agenda item? Mr. Clip?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. In Public Works sort of initial presentation on what is required for a tree removal permit, one of the phrases that stood out to me was that the applicant needs to provide, quote, evidence that they've tried everything they can to preserve the tree. And what is missing from anything I just heard from the applicant was exactly that. Evidence of options that were considered in terms of preserving and how this tree might have been a feature of a remodel rather than something that seems to be in the way. Based on the drawings, it looks like the goal was to ensure a view and a garage. And in fact, I think that the statement that stood out to me from the applicant was that maintaining the tree would, quote, change the design significantly. So this seems to me always about the design and less about the tree, because while admitting that the applicant does not know where the roots actually exist, they then make the assertion that it is the roots causing the cracks in the foundation. Again, while we are living on fault lines that probably have a lot more to do with the cracks in our foundation. As somebody who deals with cracks in foundations that are nowhere near any kind of tree in my own neighborhood, it's quite an assertion to make. So in any way, again, both the 2014 Urban Forest Plan and 2021 Climate Action Plan call for policies of preservation in construction and development, and that's exactly what this scenario is. And so I would just respectfully request that the department's decision denying this application be upheld, and that we start doing what we need to be doing to preserve and grow our urban canopy and our climate resilience here in San Francisco, rather than defer to expensive views and garages that continue to knock out big, healthy, mature ecosystems providing trees such as this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr.
Officer Chan, I was just going to
Yes.
note to you that the arborist is here. Did you want to hear from the arborist before you continue public comments, or?
The arborist can make comments during this public comment time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you want the other public comments in the order they receive?
But
Yes.
okay. Maybe we should
Uh,
hear him first, just because we usually do applicant public, and he's kind of with the applicant.
Yeah, but we limit the applicant to 3 minutes, so I think I can just hear it all at once, and then
Got you.
we can go from
Okay.
there. Yeah. Mr. John Nolte?
Okay, a couple of things that I've seen. One, the drawings don't match. You have a drawing showing that the stairs go to the left and to the right, and was the main picture of what was shown by Stephen Sutro in his presentation. So that's conflicting. And then you have another drawing showing that the stairs go to the left on the screen. So you can't have it both ways. So you have two plans really in the presentation showing how these stairs are going to go on this property. So there is the dilemma right there. You have two sets of plans, a drawing and also schematic showing two different directions of where the stairs are going to be planted. Next, we have dealing with the redwood tree, which is again a native to the area, which should be reserved. And I again don't hear anything about the roots, how that affects the foundation of the building, and also seeing that it also taking it out would enhance the view of the property and only enhance the property by having but unfortunately it also would decrease the value of the property at least by 1% by taking it out. So therefore you have a sort of a mixture being said here, because in real estate that tree is or would give a value to that building over 1% of the value with that mature tree there versus taking it out. So there were a couple of things here that, and also the quality of a mature tree to the neighborhood outweighs the benefit to the property owner, because that is something that is currently helping that neighborhood in its dealing with sequestering of helping the neighborhood, period. So outweigh the needs of the public to the private property owner. I would again go with the board with the bus recommendation to deny the appeal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Roy Leggett?
Hi, this is Roy. Susan, I appreciate very much your comments. I would say that I agree with everything you have to say, far more than the nitpicky disagreements that I might have. And I appreciate your reflecting on how topping affects appraised value. I'll consider that closely in the future. I am a little bit concerned about branches growing longer, faster because of the topping and becoming a structural problem consequentially to the topping, even though the form looks pretty good, like you say. So I just wanted to make a comment about the structural root zone of the tree and the structural necessity for placement of a foundation. The root zone of the tree that's water absorbing is judged by arborists to be around 10 times the trunk diameter as a radius. So for a tree like this, you'd end up with a pretty good area, which is a large area. It's kind of that soil volume that Susan was talking about. And if you're talking about the structural root zone, at a very minimum, arborists consider 3 times the trunk diameter as a radius for the necessary structural roots in order to prevent a tree from falling over. And this can be observed when we see storm incidents where trees are blown down in the wind, and you see a more or less horizontal root plate that turns up into the air as the tree tips over. And that's where structural roots are failing. So I think that the consideration of the structural root zone overlapping with the foundation structure itself is really the problem here. And it concerns me that foundation design, which is necessary for seismic work, is completely incompatible with the proximity of that work to the structural root zone of the tree. And with that overlap,
30 seconds.
I don't think that we can really resolve that short of removal of the existing building. But I don't think that that's a provision in the code to require removal of the building to save a tree. I think it's the other way around, unfortunately. So anyway, Mr. Chan, I appreciate your hearing me on this. And thank you again, Susan, for your input.
Thank you. Michael Nolte?
I assume that was the arborist that just spoke. Because he didn't identify himself. Anyway, the architect has the motivation of doing more work to make more money, which obviously when they do their plans, they're going to do whatever it takes to make the most amount of money out of the project. And obviously, if they see something like a tree in the way, well, you know, that's going to it gives them the motivation to do more work and costs more money for the applicant. I also want to point out that the community could benefit from the possibility when this is a significant tree, and all significant trees have the possibility of becoming a landmark tree. And so that needs to be also in the equation here, whether or not it could be landmarked, but the future of any significant tree could be possibly landmarked in the future. So, and again, which has already been stated, that we only have certain kinds of trees that are native to California, and seeing them be cut down in the community, or trees that have been here for a long time, you know, obviously it seems like the tree could have been there before the house was built. So I don't know, but we need to have more trees in particularly on the hills, but anywhere in San Francisco, and having a replacement tree that's a lot smaller put in does not equate to the same thing of value. Thank you.
Thank you. I had some questions for Mr. Sutro.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, happy to answer questions.
sure. So the roots that you've identified that might be part of the cause to the slab and the foundation crack. Do we know what the size of those roots are?
I'm going to approximate. We have uncovered that root in the current crawl space / basement of the existing house, because it's uplifted all the concrete. You can follow its path. So we've carefully removed a little bit of the concrete so you can see the root. You can trace its path all the way to the large break in the foundation. So it's unequivocal that that root has caused that damage. I'm going to approximate that it's 5 to 6 inches in diameter, that root. And Roy, you could raise your hand and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I see when I'm there, is that thing is kind of like 5 or 6 inches in diameter.
Okay. Roy, were you able to see that, or did you observe that?
Yeah, I did observe the root, and I think it's actually a little bit bigger than that because it wasn't exposed all the way around onto the sides. I don't think that we're actually, Stephen, I don't think that we're seeing the whole diameter of the root, but I would say it's at least 6 inches, probably even larger. As far
Okay.
as that root, it is certainly a structural root, something which is important to hold the tree up. And cutting something like that off at a close proximity to the tree is really an issue of public safety in my mind.
Thanks, Roy. Mr. Sutro, if we were to design around the root, what would that look like? Like, what would that design look like?
Yes, I understand what you're asking. It's the existing position of the house runs right across the root, about 4 foot 6 inches or 5 feet away from the thing. So the first thing is forget basement or garage or path or anything else, just to stabilize the or bring the foundation to current seismic standards in the position of the existing footprint of the house would either require a stem wall in traditional terms, which would sever the root entirely, or it would require a grade beam and pier system. But the grade beam, they tend to be about 24 inches wide, about 18 inches tall. And so there's a horizontal section of that needs to connect the piers in a row, if you can imagine that. And that would have to run in the exact same line as would sever the root. So the question is, could you do a foundation bridge kind of thing? Maybe, but it seems like it's severely impractical to work the machinery in that area and the drill rig and put in the foundation without damaging the root. I defer to Roy on that. I mean, we have done pier and grade beam systems to avoid roots, but usually a greater distance from the trunk and not the significant bearing seismic line of the house. So I don't know of any. Now, we discussed this with our structural engineer and with Roy and could not find 2 things that were compatible in that one location. If we were to modify the design, we could suspend the walkway, as Susan suggested. We could certainly not dig a basement in that area because that's a subjective component. But I don't see a foundation solution in that existing line of the house that is compatible with the root structure, unless I'm wrong, Roy.
I don't believe that what the engineer said and what you have said is compatible. I mean, the tree is so close, and the grade of the tree is right at the same level as the existing foundation, which is not, the existing foundation is not as deep as the seismically upgraded foundation would be. I think that's maybe the biggest issue.
Mm-hmm.
What is that basement going to be used for?
The basement is going to be used as a guest bedroom, or one of the bedrooms in the house. And I don't know, that's it. But I mean, that could be changed. We have flexibility, and certainly that can be changed.
Putting in that bedroom there, do you need to lower that slab?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
but
that means that root would be in the way.
yes, but yes, exactly.
And then to seismically update the house, is that 100% seismic update or 75%?
Exactly right. You're exactly right, to the 75% value of the code, because when you do a
Okay.
renovation, that's the requirement.
And so part of that seismic upgrade is in and around this area.
Well, the foundation all would need to be replaced because it's not reinforced with enough rebar, and is
Okay.
just it's brittle and very poor. So basically the structural engineer requires enough uplift resistance in the form of bolting down, and can't
Sure.
find that in the value of the existing foundation system.
Okay. Would you be able to send me those plans or
Yes,
send us those drawings?
just like the construction set of drawings, or you mean the exhibits that we created, or both, or what would you like?
Both. I just want to see how the structural requirements and plans look like. The details, what needs to be constructed for this building to be seismically sound.
Yes, I don't know if it could be I know that exhibits or additional information is requested by the end of the day, generally. So I have to contact the engineer, make sure we have the right cross section through the foundation
Sure.
there. Is it okay if it's not the end of the day, or is that ruin everything?
Can we shoot for end of the day?
We can. I will
If
call
not
him
tomorrow
now.
morning.
Yeah, I will call him now. Yeah, or maybe we
Okay.
already have it. I just offhand, I don't know if that cross section in that location is in the drawing set. It must be for
Sure.
you to get the information you need. So I will make sure.
Okay.
And I have access to the Bluebeam plan, so I can email those to you also.
That's great.
Okay.
It's probably already in there. I just want to check, make sure we don't need to get anything additional in any section cut for you.
Okay. Let's say we were able to humor the pier foundation route. How deep would the piers go?
How deep would the piers go? I don't know. I'd have to look at the soils report, but I imagine they would go 10 or 15 feet, something like that.
Okay.
I think it would render that room not viable is the
Mhm.
is the solution, because I think that in cross section we need to lower the floor in order to create the volume necessary for the room. The current headspace in the basement is only about 6 feet. It's not habitable legal. And so we don't
6 feet. Okay. So you can't even get a skid steer in there.
oh no, this would all have to be somehow hand done.
Yeah.
No, we'd have to shore up the structure and get a drill rig. I don't know how it would be done, really. I can't really speak to that. A hand
Okay.
drill rig or something. I mean, certainly you'd work with an air spade to find the roots, although it's really exposed. But you'd use an air spade, identify the pier locations. But the actual equipment to drill the pier, I'm not familiar enough with. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Um,
But I meant to say lower the floor because in order to create legal habitable space for
sure. Yes.
habitable is incompatible with the root just physically, but that's
Correct.
one part of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
The crack in that foundation wall, or the foundation wall with the crack in it,
Yeah.
is that foundation wall being removed or is it being
Yes.
upgraded?
No, the plan is to remove it because it doesn't have enough tensile strength or enough rebar in it.
Okay, so that's not a factor anymore. That foundation wall doesn't. It's going to be gone in the future, and
Correct.
okay.
And Mr. Chan,
Yes.
this is Roy Leggett again. Should this tree be removed and replacement tree as mitigation is approved. I would like to have an opportunity, or well, I'm sure that Susan Nawberry and myself can work with the design team, but I'd like to ensure that we have considerably more soil volume than is currently indicated on plans. I'm sure we can accomplish that. There's a similar situation that I worked on that's in Pacific Heights. It was actually 2 deodar cedars that were removed on that property as well. And for the replacement tree, we were able to produce retaining walls that were structural with penetrations. So we had opportunity for roots to extend. We irrigated areas proactively to encourage root growth. And we've had some successes over the last few years with the new plantings where we were able to cultivate a large tree again in a relatively confined site.
Sure.
So
sure.
I think we can do something similar here.
Sure, thanks. Mr. Sutro, if we were to combine the landscaping area or the planting area for that proposed new tree,
Yes.
would that include all the areas in D?
It could, yes. What we're working with from a design perspective is to slope or terrace them because it's quite steep. The whole front is quite steep. But what we would do is make a taller retaining wall to the left, or screen left or page left, and then consolidate D and D and D. And perhaps even part of C, and maybe even a little bit of the kind of path area that is an extension of the stair landing.
Okay. One of the comments was that the drawings didn't match. Are you able to maybe elaborate on that or
Yes, I
explain?
think probably the caller, the person, I forgot his name, I'm sorry, but I think there's a staircase of the neighbor that is shown on our rendering because they have recently completed a new staircase. So we modeled it for the benefit of context. And that's what's on the right-hand side of the page. And I believe that was the confusion with the caller. But
Okay.
or maybe one is looking at the existing plan, the other is the proposed plan.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think
that's
that's
the
it.
Okay, that's it then. Then certainly in the proposed rendering and proposed plan, they match to a T. There's
Okay.
no conflict in terms of the proposal.
Sure. So the context proposed work, that's what's proposed, so that's not existing.
Correct.
Okay. And then the other ones, they're existing plans, showing the existing plans.
Oh yes, where the roots are, like the
Yes.
exhibit part that shows the red roots, that's on the existing because that's kind of feels more contextually appropriate to show kind of, just relationship because we're showing
Okay.
existing photographs and things like that. So it's a better key.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then I think maybe one last question for you, Mr. Sutro. Removing the tree, does that cost more than maybe the structural workarounds and
Absolutely not.
okay.
No, unquestionably no. Yeah,
Okay.
the foundation will be exotically more expensive if we work around the root system, and then we'll modify the design so we don't have finished space there and these things. But just cost on cost removal versus net increase of cost of foundation system, unquestionably.
Sure.
costs more.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Leggett, I had a quick question for you. The route that's going underneath the property, that's structural. What would you think, how much of it can be removed and still be safe for the tree on that hill, on that slope?
The structural root zone is really based on trunk diameter. So given the size of this tree, the structural root system for the tree extends well underneath the house, but under the current configuration with the current grades. So the root would only be able to be removed after it's beyond the perimeter of the foundation.
Roy, this is also the uphill route, right? I mean, so you can see the tree is leaning significantly towards the street because it has not been able to successfully grow straight up because it's only 4 feet away from the house and the limbs have been cut and so forth. And so, I mean, I gotta think just that the uphill roots are the ones holding this thing up in the air. Isn't that right?
Well, anytime we're cutting roots within the structural root zone, it can lead to uprooting failure. And the tree already has a lean in it. We, as arborists, we assume, and I think with a pretty high degree of certainty, that trees that have a lean in the stem like this are in fact partially uprooted, or they've partly fallen over. And the evidence of this tree moving in that way and actually partially uprooting is that the upper part of the stem is still at an angle. It hasn't corrected itself. So with the tree already having partially failed and moved towards the street, cutting roots on the side opposite that lean would, I think, be catastrophic and create a public hazard.
Understood. Thank you. I think I see a hand for public comment from George.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to point out that I was told by the neighbor across the street that previously the city had tried to have that tree removed, and the owner of that property at the time had fought to keep it. So there is that context, and it is on a kind of a steep slope. And also that area and that specific property in general have a lot of trees on them. So we're not in an area that is short of trees. We're right against the UCSF and Sutro open space there. And there are several large trees in the back of the property as well, just for context.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Susan, do you know anything about
I did not find any history of us attempting to remove this tree. It's a
Okay.
significant tree on private property. We can't make somebody remove a healthy tree
Sure.
on their property. We don't have jurisdiction outside of the right of way for a tree unless it's a hazard. And we might send a letter recommending that somebody have their tree inspected if a neighbor next door is like concerned. But this is the only application on file that I found.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all the questions I had. Seeing no other public comment, I will close this item, and I will make my recommendation to the director. Next item, order 211951. This should be for Whitney Young Circle.
You see the main Public Works hearing screen.
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. Order
No
of the
worries.
hearings. So order 211951, 82, 84, 97 Whitney Young Circle. And it's the removal of 3 street trees by the Public Works due to the installation of accessible curb ramps. And this is actually kind of more of a joint approach to the removal with Bureau of Urban Forestry and the curb ramp program. The replacement trees must be relocated due to site conflicts. And the staff approved the removal and the public protested. Okay, so the curb ramp program actually applied for a permit, but because it's a city project and because the trees are in decline, we still required like a relocate a replacement. So it's a little tricky because we said earlier we don't do that for permit applications if there's no room for a replacement, but this is like a city project. So we're going with that approach here where it's a permit, but we are planning to relocate the replacements. And so this is an acacia melanoxylon. It's a blackwood acacia. They're very intolerant to root pruning. This one in particular has pretty poor structure as codominant stems. So the stems are rising from one point in the trunk and they are really close in size. And so codominant stem means that they're at least 1/3 to half of the size of the main stem. And they have very narrow V-shaped points of attachment. So they develop included bark where you get decay, and they're more prone to limb failure. This tree has been limbed up a little bit for the pedestrian crosswalk visibility over time and the stop sign. More particularly, it's actually like you could see it's green and healthy. We're not going to deny that. Like the health is good, the structure is poor. It has good vitality. It just has poor structure, and then it's directly in front of this curb ramp here. The curb ramp location, you can see the crosswalk. There just isn't another place to put the curb ramp here because that is exactly where the intersection and the crosswalk aligns for the pedestrian access points. And then you can see, so the left is the structure. It actually has multiple codominant stems. There's a lower stem and then two attached limbs here that are approximating 1/3 the size of the main stem. Then up the main stem, you have another codominant stem. Then up those two codominant stems, you have two more codominant leaders. So it has pretty poor structure all around. You maybe could mitigate some of it, but at this point, there's not a lot of lower canopy that can help support growth for the remaining limbs to assume the leader role without creating like a large cantilever effect where you have a lot of end-weighted canopy. And then the photo on the right just shows that you can see on the concrete here, there's some light colored spots. We actually had to slice and shave this here because the sidewalk is buckling, because it's a 6-foot sidewalk, and that setback space is unfortunately not right of way. We can't plant back there. And that's why we have to relocate the replacement. And those slabs are actually, each slab, I think, Jean, you would know, it's like 3 to 4 inches thick. So we can only slice or shave half to 1/3 of the thickness of the slab. Once you do that and it uplifts, you have to replace the sidewalk. Because if you shave it again, you're just going to be creating bare soil and gaps in the concrete. So you can see the slab on the right starting to uplift again, and we've already sliced it once. So just to repair this for pedestrian access would necessitate the removal alone. But then in addition to that, there's already going to be a curb ramp planned here. And because of the structure and the fact that these trees will outgrow the space in a 6-foot sidewalk, this tree gets healthier and more alive, so we did kind of weigh this more carefully than the others. But we just determined because it's an acacia with codominant stems, previous sidewalk damage where if there more uplift were to occur, we would have to perform root pruning that would necessitate the removal of this tree. In an area that generally doesn't receive a lot of sidewalk repair, because honestly, like we don't get a ton of squeaky wheels in low equity areas like the Bayview. So this is kind of part of the initiative to create more accessible curb ramps and sidewalks for these neighborhoods. The second tree, it's at 84 Whitney Young Circle, and it's right next to the healthier tree on the right. And it is absolutely in decline. We just are going to remove this because it's dying, right? So any sort of work you do will just finish off this tree. And in addition, here you have like living branch on the left. That's a kind of like a little mini cantilever. There really isn't much supporting that tree, and we don't really want to leave like dead trees in the right of way when there's going to be sidewalk repair. And it has had a tear out on the left here at the Union. There's like a whitish exposed piece of bark that's from a limb tearing out. And it has codominant stems here and what we call included bark. And there is often decay in those pockets there with acacias. It's kind of odd that this one's kind of just declining like this. So I really wouldn't be surprised if it had some sort of fungal decay that where the conchs aren't actually present at this time. They usually show up when it's wet. And you can see here that we performed a slice and shave to try to extend the life of these trees as long as we could with that slice and shave. So like, you know, we do try to do this slice and shave across the city. It is a pain to demo sidewalk, remove trees, coordinate the stump grinding, re-pour all that concrete, do all that coordination, just in terms of communication and the amount of labor it takes. We'd much rather slice and shave, which is why you see that here in these sidewalks, but we didn't do, we can't keep slicing and shaving because there's only so much remaining concrete. And here's the backside of that tree on the left. There's a tear out. You can see it's like a fresh one because it had poor structure. Kind of has poor structure still. And so I just wanted to show that angle. And the path of travel is like practically non-existent here. And then the final tree, 97 Whitney Young. This tree is just straight up in decline. Like there's no canopy up top here that it's not recovering. You can see that it's very thin. So trees send out most of their growth at the tops of the branches and the shoot tips. And so when you see that there's decline at the top, that starts to indicate that the tree is dying overall. And it also has pretty poor structure. It has these codominant stems here at the main stem. And it happens to also be in the footprint of that curb ramp. So like coupled with the fact that it's already declining and the curb ramp is planned there, like we would remove this tree without the curb ramp, this one in particular, and the other declining one, we would remove it even if there were no curb ramp going in. And just with the gutter there, the sewer, the amount of uplift along the curb here, we pretty much just the amount of root pruning required for a tree that's already in decline, it gets pretty much like a death sentence here. And you can't really expand the basin lengthwise because that's exactly where the pedestrians are coming up from the curb ramps. And you really can't put a curb ramp right in the gutter here because that's not safe. So that's why the curb ramp, I believe, it's going, yeah, right where the tree is. The crosswalk's gonna be slightly realigned. And like I said it earlier, the tree is already in decline. And there's another photo of the tree. It's very, very thin. It's pretty much on its way out. We would just remove this tree even if there were no curb ramp. And so that concludes 82, 84 Whitney, and 87 Whitney Young Circle. And to be consistent with how we handle similar cases, we approve the removal of all 3 street trees with locations to be relocated.
Okay, thank you. Since The department is also the applicant, taking care of that. Public comments at this time? Mr. Clip?
Thanks. Can you hear me? Okay. So just full disclosure about what I do for a living. I'm an accessibility consultant. In addition to being an attorney, I am a certified access specialist through California's Division of the State Architect, which means I'm certified to evaluate accessibility in built environments. And I'm one of about 5 attorneys in the entire state that is also a CASP. So when it comes to installation of curb ramps for accessibility, I could not be in more support of that. I also repeatedly see the city use this sort of general term of accessibility to remove trees all over the city without ever really pinpointing what code sections they're talking about, let alone what alternative designs were explored. And there are a lot of designs when it comes to curb ramps. There is no one size fits all, and that's because there are no intersections that are all identical across our state. As far as the trees go, so the last 2 trees, the department was clear that, again, even barring installation of ramps here, these are trees that are in decline, and so those would be removed. So I'm not going to focus on those. Rather, on the first one, which was determined to be in fair condition, what I did not hear, I mean, I did hear, but a sort of general reference to, well, this is where the intersection hits, so this is where the ramp has to be. And again, all across the city, there are plenty of examples of crosswalks that are not perfectly aligned with an intersection. We've got all kinds of intersections and all kinds of crosswalks. So what I didn't hear is exactly why it really could only be at this single location, which leads me to question what then alternatives were considered in terms of alternative locations, what alternative designs might have been considered. And the fact that we immediately went to talking about replacing sidewalk flags that were being lifted up by roots and root pruning indicates that, to me, that there were not alternative locations and designs that were considered, because there may be an alternative location that does not require root pruning. Again, you know, at the outset of this hearing, there was the statement that there needs to be evidence that we have tried everything that we can to preserve the tree, and that's not what I'm hearing here. What I heard was that someone decided this is where this had to go, and from there, everything else followed.
30 seconds.
And then finally, just in terms of replacing the trees that are going to be removed that are in decline, I would just note that there appear to be no overhead obstructions here. And because this is a part of the city that has the lowest amount of canopy, period, replacements should be large structured trees to maximize canopy and ecosystem services. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hunt?
Hello, good morning. My name is Christine Hunt. I am the Assistant Project Manager with the Curb Ramp Program, which is proposing this project at Whitney Young Circle. And it is intended to improve the ADA access where there's currently non-existent or one non-compliant ramp. And we'll be installing 5 new curb ramps to make the intersection accessible and improve the path of travel. So to speak to the design, the existing conditions of the intersection include steep inclines in all directions and narrow sidewalks, drainage structures, and all of these were considered for the placement of the ramps, and they do limit the possible positions for the ramps and the crossings. The further up you go an incline, it does make it more difficult to design a compliant ramp. So the existing crossing positions are deemed to be the best for providing a compliant ramp that doesn't create additional impacts to the steep sidewalk. The trees that were identified are in the path of travel for the crosswalks. So they conflict with the proposed ramps. And when we requested review, it revealed that the trees were already lifting the sidewalk significantly and that they also had health and structure issues. So we do want to pursue the approved removal of the trees and proceed with installing curb ramps for this accessibility project. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I skipped over you earlier.
That's okay.
Mr. John Nolte?
Good morning. So again, it seems that the presentation by the city does not outweigh the means of the neighborhood, and also because I did live on Hills, and also it does not sound correctly how there were no really alternatives made to the existing crosswalk to make it so it not to preserve the trees as an element for the community. So, and also again, there are not a lot of it's that you can see by the picture to the north that the two trees that are in decline, but you also see that there is no property there behind it. So therefore, you see that also there's not that many people walking down the street, and you're putting in curb ramps for whatever reason. But the point is that again, it's a necessity to even waste the money of the city to put in these curb ramps to a location on a hill that's not very many people walk. So it, to me, is the questions the waste of money by the city to put in curb ramps at this location, because it's on a hill and there's not that many properties nearby. So therefore, there's not a lot of people walking these streets that warrant a large amount of ADA accessible curb ramps, and also to do it. So you're not going to have a lot more buildings up there. So you have to think about the long term of impact of wasting money, city money on these ramps, and how that affects the neighborhood. And all you're thinking about now is the last issue, that is because the trees are in the way. Well, that's too bad. Maybe you don't need the curb ramps. And is there some rule that you need these curb ramps at this location? No, because again, it's like an afterthought, and then also wasting SFMTA's money. So I think that sort of answers the question. As we're running a deficit and you're wasting money on these type of hearings and a time for the public to see how the city wastes its money for the heck of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Nolte?
Thank you for still being at the hearing. It seems to me that the first tree that was shown is a healthy tree, so all mitigation should be considered to preserve it. As far as the curb ramps go, yes, curb ramps may be necessary in San Francisco. We do have a more aging population that will be occurring in San Francisco, because that's just how San Francisco is. Our population is getting older. But if it's just for a bunch of kids for their bicycles, I mean, that's something totally different. We shouldn't be having bicycles on the sidewalks. So, I mean, let's get real. What ends up on the curb, going up and down the curb ramps? So, I would like to see, you putting in these curb ramps. I would like to see the neighborhood also put up, don't have your bicycles on the sidewalk. for the, again, as an advocate for seniors and disabled, I would make sure that we don't have the conflicts on the sidewalks, especially when the sidewalks are not that wide. And a wheelchair is only so wide, and a bicycle, and anyway, so as far as the, I would try to preserve the first tree. The other two trees are in decline. And but then there was no discussion about where a replacement tree would go. And so I would also like to hear where in the neighborhood where the replacement trees would go, since that was not part of the presentation. And it should have been, because I mean, I would assume we need more trees and not just always taking out the trees, especially since the city is doing this. And I would like to also hear about any alternative ways to mitigate the first tree, so that the realignment of the crosswalk, so that the first tree can stay there.
30 seconds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Susan had some questions. Can that first tree be pruned so that it becomes structurally healthy?
It's a little late. It can be kept like small. Like we could hold on to it longer. They tend to get like 60, 70 feet tall. And the structure with that much weight on it, it probably won't make it to that size. It would probably split and fail by then. At this age and size, you can probably kick the can down the road for like another 10 years in terms of its health and structure. But if it got like really big, the structure would be really problematic. That's kind of like the major failures that we see in like the center of the city. I think it was like Sonic over the winter time. We had an acacia just kind of like split and close the road. That was like so these get really, really big. It's really young at this point, and when you have structure like this on a young tree, it's not as problematic, but beyond 10, you could probably hold on to this tree for like another 10 years in terms of its health and structure.
Sure. Okay. And it is uplifting the sidewalk on both sides.
It does have uplift. If it became really uplifted where we had to perform a repair because somebody tripped and fell, I don't think it could survive that repair. Because the sidewalk is so narrow, it might be tricky to do a basin expansion that could preserve roots. So I don't know if it's a matter of we would go ahead and remove this tree right now, but I think a problem would have to arise for us to do it.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. Ms. Hunt, I had some questions for you. I think in terms of the curb ramps, how does the city go about citing curb ramps or proposing curb ramps for construction, specifically for this case?
So, hello, this is Christine. The curb ramp program specifically tries to address requests from the public, typically those with disabilities or mobility issues that bring to our attention a need for curb ramps at various locations that don't currently have them or are non-compliant. We do have, a number of ramps throughout the city that don't exist, and we have yearly goals. But this location at Whitney Circle is one that was identified as a request location by one or more people with disabilities in order to be able to access the local park. So currently, those who are in wheelchairs or who are not able to have ambulatory issues to step up onto a sidewalk are probably routing themselves to further crosswalks in the neighborhood in order to make their way, throughout the neighborhood. So this location will provide access to people in order to not have to go completely out of their way to get to, local parks or other destinations.
Sure. Thank you. One more question. For the first location, do we look into possibly realigning the crosswalk a little bit to dodge the tree?
That is something that we do look into for realignment of crosswalks. Typically, we'd loop in SFMTA and also consider like the terrain of the location that we're trying to improve. So, some of the crosswalks, two of the crosswalks are at the bottom of a steep hill in two directions, and then at the top of another hill that slopes down. Typically, we don't like to shift crossings like up a hill, and they also, or to shift them where there might be a corner that drivers might not see pedestrians crossing. So that is taken into consideration when looking at if we can shift the ramps over a little bit. So safety is definitely the first thing in mind when the crossings are evaluated.
Okay. Thank you. Susan, I guess back to you. Last question. Can you kind of go over where the replacement trees would be planted in the area?
We still need to canvass those. But we have our federal IRA grant. It funds 250 trees. And we also have a Clean City grant, and those two are specifically just those portions of 250 trees per year, and the Clean City grant separately fund replacement trees only. There's other portions where it funds like 1,000 trees a year, and that is supposed to go toward new cut sites, and those are supposed to go to our planting partners. So we do actually have grant funding to do replacement trees. So we will actually, it does need to be in that same neighborhood. So we need to earmark, like, if we use that grant money, it needs to be the replacement trees for Whitney Young Circle.
So it may not
we
be
haven't
in
found
that
it yet.
intersection. Okay.
It may not be that specific intersection. It can't be in like those 6-foot sidewalks.
Sure.
So we're gonna have to look for areas where there's wider sidewalks.
Okay. So this would probably go on to what is that you spoke to earlier?
The deferred replacement report.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I just want to be very clear that like we do track all our removals, and there is some frustration that like we are having trouble figuring out how to piece together all our replacements and all of our removals and align them with like the deferred replacement. So
Mhm.
I just want to be totally transparent that like there's definitely frustration with the public on that, and
Sure.
that's part of why we get like appeals and protests for our internal
Yeah.
tree removals.
Is that report public?
It can be public, and we just need to, it absolutely can be. I will honestly say, like, we don't have the best data keeping. We have data, we just don't have the best data management system that can help us produce really clear technical reports on like that's the tree that we removed, and this is the replacement that's linked to it. So the
It's
deferred
not
replacement report,
easily
it's not easily exported.
presentable.
Right. It's going to take a lot of, it's going to be a big data project to try to piece these two pieces,
Sure.
all the IDs of removals and replacements together.
Sure, but it is tracked that, hey, we have this many removals
Yeah.
and
Every
this
single
many
removal.
replacements that need to happen.
Yeah. Every single removal is tracked. Every single planting is tracked. The way they interact is not entirely easy
Sure.
for us to connect. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Okay, are there any other public comments from people who have not spoken? Okay. If not, I will close this item and make my recommendations to the director. And then the final order, 211952. I think that's Scott Street.
Sorry. Okay. Thanks for everybody's patience. So this is the final order. 211952, 2772 Scott Street, and 2429 Green Street. And this is to consider the removal of 7 street trees. 4 of the trees are replaceable on site, and 3 replacement trees must be relocated. And staff approved the removal and the public protested. So this is just an example of the London Plane sycamore. This is a typical specimen of the species. It has a full canopy, it's reaching a large stature, and actually for its size, they don't produce that much sidewalk damage. So like I wouldn't say these are like the perfect tree. There is no perfect tree, but these are really good. This is like a good example of what a row of healthy platanus in the city of San Francisco looks like. So this, I'm sorry, just the difference makes me, this is the example of one of the trees we're proposing to remove. It has like a 10% live crown ratio, maybe 5, and that's like the ratio of the amount of canopy to the height of the tree. So it's definitely struggling significantly. It's not really, it's just barely putting out growth at the ends, but it has no lower canopy. This is due to a variety of reasons, like there's wind, available soil volume, and anthracnose. There's old pruning wounds where you can see decay. The foliage is very chlorotic. It's not very green, and that's it's often sometimes just due to like being windswept, which is kind of like a water deficiency issue. And then let's see, 3114. I believe this location is replantable. The next one here, which is like almost very similar tree. This is the one to the right, and this is the one to the left. Same issue. They have pervasive anthracnose, and again, there's old pruning wounds with decay, and not that doesn't necessarily mean the tree is pruned poorly because platanus are very resistant to decay, but what it means is it may have really low defenses to pruning because the trees are so stressed. They can end up becoming decayed. And this tree is not replaceable because it's directly in front of a stop sign. And then this one is behind the stop sign, but in front of the intersection. And so in the other section of our code says that we can't have a tree within 25 feet of an intersection. And that's why this tree is not replaceable. The spacing of these trees are all just a little like wrong, basically. Unfortunately, just if they're like shifted over and just planted differently, we may be looking at a different replacement scenario. But again, like this one, what, 5% live crown ratio, very little canopy, and some of the shoots are dead. So you don't have a ton of growth here. And it also has really poor structure. The canopy is so thin though, that like at this point, it's really just the tree is on its way out and declining. And it's like, yes, the tree has poor structure, but the tree is probably going to die before you get a limb failure here. It's all so, and then the other reason it can't be replaced is because it's next to a fire hydrant, although that might be the required 5 feet. It's pretty close. And then this is the next tree. They're all like very similar, really poor condition here. There's perpendicular parking, so we're gonna have to deal with the basin being recut, and that's the other thing is this is just gonna be like a large shifting project. This is too close to a street light, so we can't replace it. Our guidelines require that whatever size tree it is, the bulb of the street light needs to be clear 6 feet. So if you have like a large stature tree that's less than 21 feet to a street light, you end up having a bulb obstructed, and a small stature tree can't be like closer than 9 feet to a street light. So again, this one also has anthracnose and is declining. It has, I don't know, you could probably count these leaves on like all 10 fingers and 10 toes. Continuing on, another example of the next tree in decline with like a maybe 15% live crown ratio. We're looking for trees that have like 40 to 50% live crown ratio. When once you get below 30, you start dealing with limb failures or just overall decline because there's not enough canopy to support the main tree. And this tree can be replaced. It is compliant with our code. And another tree, this one has like 10 leaves. This one just can't be replaced. Or sorry, this one can be replaced, but it cannot be. It could be retained, but then you're just probably gonna end up with a dead tree in a year. So like that's why we approve these. And this permit's an example of when we said like that we approve the removal of trees that like the public would like to see removed faster than our ability to contract and prune. Like our crews, like they are constantly dealing with failures and removals across the city and pruning for people who haven't received their first pruning in the pruning cycle yet. So, sometimes people do apply for removals that, we would also approve if we were here on our contract grid. Again, this one is in severe decline, low live crown ratio. It doesn't have a full canopy. And so this is kind of the issues we're dealing with. All the basins need to be shifted, some from the curb, some away from utilities, and the property owner has agreed to remove these concrete curbs. Because these are our street trees, we do need to, and we have like $19 million of funding, we do need to cut new basins. I can't actually say that the timeline would be super quick because we do have other sidewalk repair priorities. But the plan is that we would participate in the shifting of the basins. So you can see the 3 trees that can't be relocated here, that can't be planted because one is too close to the stop sign on the left, and moving north. One is too close to the intersection, and then to the right here around the corner, one is too close to the street light. The rest of them, the placement isn't great, but we're proposing removal because of the condition, not because of the placement, and we'll be shifting the locations of the trees we approve for removal. And that concludes this case. And to be consistent with how we handle similar cases and a bunch of declining trees, we approve the trees for removal.
Thank you. So for the applicant or property owner, I'm assuming Miss Barbara Heffernan is it.
Hi, I did send in photographs. I really agree about the removal of the spindly ones on the Green Street side. I live just down the street and I walk under those trees, and in heavy winds, branches are breaking off. So they're real hazard. But a comment I have, did you say that on your map that the ones on the Scott Street side can be replaced as long as they're shifted? Is that correct? You have 3 blue circles. The 2 circles on the Scott side, would it be possible to replace those dead trees and shift the location?
I mean, I'll answer
Ms.
that.
Hef-
Usually I just wait for the hearing officer
Yeah.
to address me, but I'll
Yeah,
answer
right.
that. The
Well,
blue
I was
ones
gonna
can't
say,
be
let her finish
replaced.
her statement for 3 minutes, and then after
Got
she's
it.
done,
Got it.
then
Got it.
we can
Okay.
move forward.
Yeah.
So Ms. Heffernan, you don't speak directly to the staff representative. You just make your statement, and then we can
Okay,
answer.
great. Thank you. So let me just quickly finish. The yellow trees on Green Street need to be removed. They're dangerous. They're a hazard. I'm all for preserving trees. In fact, we actually planted trees in front of our house probably 20 years ago and got together with a group of neighbors, and we paid for the planting of the trees. They're suffering a little bit now because, I hate to say it, but the city sent out a crew and pruned them so badly. They're struggling, but that's another story. Anyway, I'm finished. Thank you. I'd like to approve, my comment is approve the removal and replacement.
Okay, thank you. Susan, I'll save the question for last. I'll move on to public comment first. Mr. Clip.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I started my public comment this morning talking about the importance of taking this all seriously and why that matters, and specifically in this particular moment in time. And so with that, I just want to say a few things. First, I want to thank you for taking this seriously. I want to thank Cerise for her professional management of this hearing. I want to thank the department for its thoughtful and well-reasoned presentations. And I also want to thank the hearing officer for your many follow-up questions, which indicates to me, a member of the public, that you are taking this seriously and you're looking into the details, and whatever the results, I just want to say that I deeply appreciate that. Oh, and then one other note about the tree replacement list, since that came up. I think it would be incredibly helpful that the removals be aligned with the replacements, because that's what the law asks for. Not just that replacements be made, but that they be made in the same or closest location. That was the update to that particular aspect of the law back in February 2022. So it's unclear to me how the city can even track that, let alone the public, if that's not how that data is focused or maintained. As for these particular trees, obviously they all look pretty bad. So also worth noting that I don't see any overhead obstructions, and soil volume and basin size are things that over which we have some control here. So I would just request that, to the extent that we're talking about replacements in place and in nearby locations, that those be the largest structured trees possible, so that we get the maximum amount of ecosystem services from those replacements. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Mr. Michael Nolte?
Well, I want to thank the presentation. It's unfortunate this is the last one because it was probably the best one done as far as easy to understand for the public. But it is a shame when trees have to be totally removed because of intersections and certain kinds of guidelines that have been put in place, whether it's stoplights or or stop signs or stoplights or fire hydrants or bus stops. All these things end up causing less and less trees being placed in the sidewalks. And the city ends up saying, well, these are the reasons why we have to remove, and then now we have the ADA. So, I mean, yeah, and these are all, near the intersections where people have to, if you think about it, I'm a pedestrian and I have to stand and wait to cross the street, and there's no shade because the trees have all been taken away for various reasons. And that's usually, the one place that people would like to have a shade is, you have to stand there, wait for a car to go by because of the stop signs or the traffic lights. So, on one hand, but then there's the traffic, and the traffic has to not be impeded. So it's like, who gets what rights? Yes, the trees are poor, and I would like to see as many trees be replaced as possible, and the largest possible. And obviously, I don't know what happened to these trees. I mean, there's obviously a lot of things have happened to make these trees to be in this poor condition. I don't think, it's all wind. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. John Nolte?
Yes, so somebody that has planted London pine trees, these type of trees, I have a problem with looking at them, and that is not, it's not the top, it's the trunks. Why are the trunks so fat? So obviously there's something going wrong here because you have all 7 of these trees, they all have fat trunks. So can you, it seems to be the question of something going on at this location. Because to what she said prior to what the good ones look like, they were more skinnier trunks. So again, I don't know when these trees were planted, but again, the issue is that these trunks are so wide, and it doesn't sprout out really evenly. The foliage on top. So it kind of explains that, again, the ones that you showed that were nice, they were, thinner and more manageable. But I see that these are thicker. I don't know if that's because they're on a hill or what causes that, but that it seems to be the real issue here. And maybe that's why, these London pine trees, are not good for the, at least at this location, and also why they're being phased out in the city and another type of London tree being replaced. But so I do agree that these need to be replaced, and I would prefer that the I believe 3 that are going to be found at the current location, that they would be replaced with bigger stature trees, and that the 4 remaining sites would be again near this location between Scott and intersection of Scott and Green Street, so that the neighborhood can get back some of its foliage that it's lost during this hearing. Thank you very much for your time, and I thank the Mr. Chan, for the hearing officer, for his diligent questions during this hearing, because sometimes we don't have hearing officers that don't ask these questions, at least in the public. And so it's good to hear that he was diligent in asking questions from all parties concerned about issues that were being brought up during the hearing. And I want to thank Susan for her time, and also Chris for her time and having this meeting. And anybody else in the background that may be still here. So thank you for this hearing and have a great day.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay. Susan has some questions for you.
Yep.
Can you answer Ms. Heffernan's question about the relocation or the shifting?
They cannot be shifted. There isn't room on these frontages, the blue ones, because of that. Yeah, the approach to the intersection. Like, and if you were to shift them anywhere, they'd probably be too tightly spaced. So they would be relocated in that area.
Okay. So we've already cited locations where the relocations will occur.
Not here. It's a very well-stocked neighborhood, so we probably need to expand the planting areas or expand beyond like just the 2 blocks, because Pacific Heights, we deal more with like over like closely planted trees than like, yeah, it's a very different neighborhood. Like compared to other parts of the city, like they plant a lot of trees, they plant them densely, and they plant them too close together. So it's harder to find available planting sites, but it doesn't mean they don't exist. We might just need to head over toward the marina where where the planting is less dense, which means we may need to make note of that in the deferred replacement report, that it's not in the exact immediate area. I will say, like, I think Pacific Heights could benefit more from like expanding the permeability, because they do have such heavily stocked planting areas. So like larger basins, more Sawick landscaping is I think that the next thing we should be focusing on Pacific Heights. They have not been scoped yet. No.
Okay. So because Pacific Heights is sort of, you said, well stocked, when cases like this happen, that means that the sort of urban canopy in the area becomes thinner because of the dense spacing.
That's fair to say. You could say that you're losing canopy because of fewer replacements. You could also say that when you plant densely, you don't give trees the full ability to spread their canopies, and they compete more. They produce poorer structure. So like both things can be true, I think.
Okay. And then in terms of the trunks, the trunks here they do look a little bit wider.
These trees are just older.
Okay.
They're just older, like, and that's part of it too. That's part of why they're declining. Because like they do have anthracnose, they have structural issues, but they are just older. Like these are much younger. You will see these trunks get bigger as they age, and hopefully we don't see the same decline, because I think these are the Columbia variety. They're also more suited to the Mission. It's not quite as foggy and windy. So yeah, they're just older. If you see like an asymmetrical bulge, like a rounding, then that's kind of an indication of drought issues and potentially decay. But in this case, these are older, and it looked like they had been pollarded at one point, and that yeah, so they just are probably, they look smaller because they were pollarded, but they're actually older trees. Pacific Heights is an old tree planted neighborhood because they were one of the first neighborhoods that planted out the canopy. There's a whole tree history tour thing on our website.
Okay. For the replacements and the replantings, do we know what type of tree we're looking at?
Probably not a London plane, because we have so many of them. Yeah, they're overstocked, and hopefully not a magnolia either. We're looking to diversify our species, and maybe some oaks, if possible, but we have like a whole planting palette that's neighborhood specific, and the inspector for this area is that's like her child basically is that planting that planting spreadsheet. So we'll definitely pick like a tree that has like equivalent value in terms of its canopy, but not the same species.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw on the planting plan slide that we're going to cut new basins.
Right.
Is that new basin going to be big enough for the new tree?
Let's see.
It looks to be about the same size as the
They will be
existing.
the same size, so we will have to pick trees that can handle slightly smaller basins for their size. One species that I'm thinking of is a holly oak. Like we've noticed that they don't like there's some, I forgot which park. It's near Geary, but there's some holly oaks that are really big for the basin size. So, and then like worst case, we can expand toward the curb as the tree grows. But for now, we're looking at cutting like a 3x3 set back from the curb because of perpendicular parking.
Okay.
Because there's stairs right there on the right too.
Yeah.
We don't, it doesn't have to be 3x3. It could be like a 3x6 too. We just have to be careful about how the pedestrians get out of the cars and cross the sidewalk and approach the stairs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So it can be variable or it can change in size.
Yeah, like if you look at these trees, like they're pretty like I know that their canopies aren't huge, but they're actually pretty big for how little sidewalk damage. So there are trees that proportional to their size can handle slightly smaller basins.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Last chance for public comments from anyone that did not speak. Okay, seeing no hands, no more comments for this item. I will now close the item and make my recommendation to the director. That concludes all our agenda items for this hearing. This hearing is now closed. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your patience. Have a great day.